So let's take a closer look at what's happening to equilibrium when we have these aggregate demand shocks. All right, so we have our AE and our Y. Then we have our price level and our real Y. We have this 45-degree line, which is that equilibrium in this demand side of the market here. And here's our AE curve. Capital A, the intercept, the slope is Z. And let's say we're at Y0 right now. And let's say that we're currently at P0. And what that's going to do is correspond to an equilibrium down here. Here's my AS curve. Here's my AD curve. We're going to say that this is Y0 and this is P0. All right, so there's going to be some kind of shock. So we're at this equilibrium here, and we're going to look at what happens when there's a shock to the AD curve. And what I mean a shift in the AD curve. So we can think of different causes. So causes of AD shocks. So for instance, anything affecting A. So remember, A equals little a plus I0 plus G0 plus X0. So anything that's going to affect any of these four components of capital A is going to cause this AS curve to shift up or down, which is going to cause this AD curve to shift to the right or to the left. So let's say, for example, we can look at what we looked at early in the video. So let's say foreign income increases. Well, that's going to cause X0 to go up. Our exports are going to go up, which is going to cause our capital A to go up. Okay, so it goes up like this. It's our capital A. Here's our, I'm going to call it Y0 prime. We're going to hold price constant. We're not going to let prices change yet. Here's our change in A. Remember, this change in this Y down here is the simple multiplier. Simple multiplier times that change in A. So when we talked about shifts in aggregate demand, what's happening in the demand side of things, so I'll use blue, is that in this bottom graph, is this AD curve is going to shift to the right. And the size of that shift, doesn't look like it matches up that well, but the size of that shift is supposed to be the same size of that. So here's the same Y0 prime. So again, this is supposed to be the same, just how I drew them didn't work out, but this is the simple multiplier times that change in A. So that's this movement here. So that's the first thing that's going to happen. This AD curve shifts to the right, and that corresponds with this shift up of the AE curve and how Y goes up here. But we're not at equilibrium there. There's upward pressure on prices, right? The aggregate demand is higher than the aggregate supply. Well, the prices are going to go up. And as the prices go up, remember that price level increase is going to shift our AD curve down, and well, it's going to make it a bit flatter too. And so what's going to happen is that this is shifting down as this price level goes up. So it's getting a little bit crowded here, but A0, but it's a function of P1. It's going to stop when we get to P1 and Y1, and that corresponds with P1 and Y1. So notice that the shift in the AD curve is the simple multiplier times the change in A. But that's not the change in equilibrium anymore because of this change in the price level. So the simple multiplier is the size of the shift in the AD curve from a change in A, from a marginal change in A, or think about a change of 1 unit maybe, or something like that. That's this distance here, the simple multiplier times that change in A. That change in A was 1, this would be the simple multiplier. The multiplier, on the other hand, is the change in equilibrium when there's a change in capital A of, let's say, 1 unit. So change in equilibrium from a delta A of 1 unit. So this is the mechanics of an AD shock. Now we could do the exact same thing where we have this, so this is an expansionary shock, we could do a contractionary shock. It would work in the same way. The size of the shift in the AD curve, let's say if G went down, the AD curve would shift to the left because this A would get smaller. Prices would adjust, and we get to this new equilibrium. Okay. So now we can look at aggregate supply shocks and the mechanics behind these AS shocks. So again, we can draw our AE and our Y curve, the demand side of the market up here. We can draw our real Y and our price level diagram down here. That 45-degree line with equilibrium in this expenditure side of the economy. Here's our AE curve with an intercept of capital A and a slope of Z. Let's say that's a P0 right now. And then what's happening is we have, let's say, Y0 here. We have equilibrium down in this macroeconomic equilibrium down here, AS and AD, and they meet at Y0 and P0. And so let's say there's a shock to the supply curve, or the aggregate supply curve. So shock to the AS. So what could cause it is tech changes or changes in factor prices. So for example, the price of labor, let's say, increases. So wages go up. Well, what effect is that going to have on the AS curve? Well, it's going to shift our AS curve to the left, right? It's more expensive to produce things if the price of labor has increased. So the AS curve is going to shift to the left, to here, and we're going to move along this demand curve, which is corresponding to a rise in price. Remember, when price levels goes up, this AE curve shifts down. We're going to get this new equilibrium down here. So what's happening on the AE side of the economy is that this AS curve shift is causing the prices to go up, which is shifting this AE curve down. That doesn't cause a shift in the AD curve because price is on one of our axes. So it's a movement along this AD curve. So we're just moving along this AD curve to get this new kind of short run macroeconomic equilibrium at P1 and Y1. So here's an example when the price of labor went up, the price of labor goes down, the AS curve would shift to the right. And again, instead of this AE curve going down, instead there would be kind of downward pressure on prices. And so this AE curve would shift up and our real Y would go up as a result.